Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Piers, CEO of Radix, the first layer one protocol built specifically to serve decentralized finance. Today, we're going to be talking as a round table of some of the key people within Radix. I have Matthew Hine, head of product. I have Russell Harvey, our CTO, and I have Adam Simmons, our head of strategy. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. We've got some great questions from the community, which we're going to be going through today. And I am going to be hosting, moderating, and occasionally jumping in on conversation points. So let's kick it off with the first question, which is, what are the team's reflections on adoption since mainnet launch, and how has this measured up against your expectations? Are the teams still optimistic about the current roadmap? Do you want to start us off, Matt?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's about setting expectations for each one of these things. Like, for any given release, you're not going to try to boil the ocean and solve all problems at once. So Olympia has a very particular purpose, and I think it's gone extremely well, actually. I mean, which isn't to say that this is an excuse for all things. Like there are, we've had hiccups, we've had issues we had to deal with, but in the end, the thing that Olympia really needed to do for us was provide a good decentralized network with a large group of participating community node runners, giving the ability for people to flow tokens into the network and stake those tokens to ensure that decentralized network remains secure. And to allow people to just start doing the first playing around with this network. It is a simple network in the end. This isn't sort of our developer focused release. It isn't all the things that we're planning on doing in the future, but we wanted to get people engaging with the network and sending tokens around and doing stuff and getting a feel for, this is a real thing. It's not just sort of a concept. And of course, there's also, I guess, from our own point of view, it's a technology foundation, and that, nothing beats a live operating thing to focus your attention on what are the most important problems for us to solve next, to bring focus to the roadmap, even things like StokedNet that are live but are a little bit less intensive than mainnet. Having something live gives us the ability to do much more high quality testing and much better development on all the things that we do want to do in the future. So from all those perspectives, I think it's gone really well. I think, from a user perspective, I think this is where it's an early network, and so there are always little hiccups. And so, again, I don't want anyone watching this to feel like, oh yeah, Radix thinks everything was perfect, and all these things we saw, issues we saw at the wallet and DDoS attacks and little things weren't important. It's more that that's kind of what this network is about, is that those things inevitably happen, and this gives us the ability to really work out the solutions to these problems in the long term, which is what we're really focused on.
That's really, yeah. I mean, it's been amazing to watch that sort of rollout, and every time something goes wrong or every time there's a problem, it just makes it stronger for the next for when we were able to push it the next release, and it's sort of an iterative process. Like, Russell, how about the roadmap? How are you feeling sort of about the upcoming technology release schedule?
I mean, I'm really, really happy because in my mind, the thing that Olympia was about, the token holder. It was about getting to a point where we have a release network, where we have people able to stake and secure the network. And I'm thrilled at the level to which people have staked. I think our core product is great. The thing where we stumbled a bit was on the services around it, on some of the experiences with the wallet and with InstaBridge, for example, have been less than ideal. And I'm happy that they've all, they launched successfully. They overall have worked with some teething problems. And now we have time to address those things without having this coordinated release where we had to have 6 or 7 products go live at the same time. So the team has a bit of breathing room. But roadmap wise, I'm just thrilled to be moving to Alexandria, because for me, the part where, how do we drum up the developer interest is the thing that I'm most excited about. And I'm really happy to reveal Scrypto very soon.
Yeah, thinking about the future roadmap, I mean, I'm unbelievably optimistic about it. When you have a multi-year roadmap like we do, and we have kind of these you get sort of this like fractal development where you work out at the top level. It's sort of like, okay, in theory, this sort of thing is possible and these pieces will fit together. And then you get down to really working out like what's the architecture that implements those things. And then in the end, you get down to really releasing a piece of software, right? So as we get further out in time, it's more architecture and less implementation because we haven't gotten to that point. So there are always there's some assumptions associated with that about like, okay, we start with this and then we believe that based on the history of what we built up to this and the architecture choices we've made, that the next thing on the schedule is that this builder's experience that we're talking about is going to be really powerful for people. And in terms of optimism, like as the stuff that we're going to start revealing pretty soon here that Russ was talking about Alexandria and about Scrypto and Radix Engine V2 and those things, like as the team that's been starting to translate the architectural ideas into the implementation that we're going to release at Alexandria, I think you'll agree with me, Russ, that it has been every step of the way as things have been, if anything, going even further than we expected in terms of the result of the experience. It hasn't been like, it's like, oh, we were making this assumption, but actually this looks like it's not going to be implementable, or this had less value than we thought it did. Is there really, there hasn't really been, I've been surprised actually how much there hasn't been questioning of the underlying direction. Yeah, I know, right?
It's been going.
Yeah, fair enough. But like, I'm really pumped up about Alexandria. Like, we're going to be talking about this stuff, and it is really cool. Like, and I'm really the articles that we've got going. I kind of enthuse about this because I really do think that builders' experience is something that hasn't been appreciated in the blockchain space. Piers and I are going to be talking about this some next week, so I won't delve into it too much. But like, it is a huge problem holding back DeFi, and I really feel good about the approach that we're taking with it. And that is the first real step that we have to take to be successful as Radix, is really solve the hell out of that problem. And so the next year of Alexandria and Babylon, I'm feeling really optimistic about that.
From a sort of like strategic marketing point of view, community point of view, like what's been your view, Adam, on how the Olympia launch went, and sort of how things are going, and how you feel about the sort of coming roadmap as well?
So I think we had at the launch a lot of awareness come out of that, and obviously as Russ and Matt have mentioned, there were some bumps in the road on especially some of the auxiliary services, but seeing people rally around with staking, I mean, last few days we hit 2 billion XRD staked, which is a monumental achievement. That's about, at the time of recording, over $200 million worth of stake. That is a huge real mark of support from the community that we're really thankful for. And it also helps in many other avenues. So when we're talking to things like influencers, when we're getting new audiences come and look at what we're delivering, those sort of metrics just show that there is such a strong core community. And it's not just that strong community we're getting, but it's also how we're able to grow on that as well. So, for example, videos like this are suggestions that have come out on how we can continue to evolve, continue to grow, how we're communicating with our community. And even we're already seeing the first community things come through. So one of the great things is quite a lot of the various validator node runners have been making cool things like dashboards or validator lists, or using some of our APIs to show some data, all the way down to running competitions. And I've seen, obviously, I think most of us have got a couple of Floop in our wallets that have been airdropped or Doge cubed. And that excitement from the community at this very, very early stage gets me so excited about what's going to happen when we get the amazing things coming in Alexandria and Babylon and beyond.
Yeah, seriously, the validator node runner committee. I mean, this is one of like sort of our internal metrics for what we considered a success for Olympia. Like, that has gone so well in terms of like us blowing past what we expected for this. Like, I am so excited to see that the community is not just sort of like, all right, you see, I don't know. I'm from the outside perspective. You look at a lot of projects that have they have their node runner community. It's sort of like, okay, you get people that come in there and they, they're running the node, and you get kind of some like whale consortiums that do their thing. But like, I love that in the end, these communities should be about the community taking care of itself. It should be each one of these node runners that's trying to, there's an opportunity for them, and then there's also a service that they provide to the network. That's how it should be. I mean, this, not to get into this, but this is really the first element of governance. And like the node runner community has done an unbelievably good job of this. Like all the stuff that Adam mentioned, and also just seeing this in the right light, that it's a combination of doing right by the network as well as competing, trying to, there's this, I love seeing this friendly competition between the Node Runner guys. I don't know if people are in the Node Runner chat on Discord, but it's like everyone's swapping hints about how to run their node more reliably. Like they're doing tests, they're sharing all these things, but at the same time, they're also in the promotional channels trying to kind of outdo each other about, convincing people to stake to them. It's awesome. Like this is what a good, healthy network looks like. And that is very gratifying to see.
Yeah, I was actually going to make a very similar sort of like point in terms of it's an important inflection point in the life of a public decentralized ledger, because it's the stage in which the community stops going, you should build this, as in like to the foundation or to the team going, oh, you need to build this, you need to build that, you need to build the other, and starts going, oh, well, there's an opportunity for me to build this. There's enough that I'm excited, I have a passion, and I'm going to go and build this service. And like some of the staking dashboards that we've seen, some of the Explorer services, people are now starting to talk about community build wallets as well. And like all of this stuff is exactly the stuff that is the seeds of a proper public decentralized ledger ecosystem, and it's great, so great that we get to start seeing that, even at Olympia, before we even have the developer ecosystem able to build on top of the network.
A quick ask for anyone watching: if you do make something really cool like that, do let us know. Reach out to one of the community team, send us a tweet from an account about it. Like even if it's things like we've had amazing artwork done, dashboards, some funny memes. We love seeing those things, and wherever we can, we want to help really put
Champion
a spotlight
people.
and champion. Sure. Yeah, exactly. So champion people who are doing great things for the network and for the community. So keep all of that up. It's really appreciated.
Awesome. Let's move on to the next question. So how does the team hope to build hype around the upcoming Alexandria release? And can we get a taster of any campaigns that you are planning to build awareness? Let's start this one with Adam, and then move down the stack, as it were.
Taste of campaigns.
Yeah, so Alexandria is what we're planning to build for hype there. I can say I'm really excited about. One, because I know that I'm going to make Matt's life a lot better by not on pretty much a daily basis being like, Matt, can I tell everyone this yet? And him being like, no, wait, Adam, wait till we announce it properly. And I know he's been working on some great content for that, so that'll be fantastic. Matt, I believe it was Matt anyway, also outdid me with the Alexandria preview event. It may have been Russ pointing out that abbreviates to APE Radix. So, of course, APE Radix is going to be a very, very exciting event in person in New York, and also live streamed. So a keynote where you'll get to speak to or hear from Piers and Matt, and then the workshop afterwards for people to get their first hands-on try with Scrypto. But I know so many people are going to be very, very keen to see, and I'm very much looking forward to the reactions we get from that. As for how we're going to build hype on it, there's already things that we're in the process of building. So during Alexandria, a big one of our pushes was to elevate things like our Twitter profile and our community, to grow those numbers to a point where we're passing that kind of initial look test, where people who are coming in and seeing we've got a live network, seeing the amount of stake we've got, seeing different promotions going on, and actually saying, yeah, Radix is really growing quite quickly now, and building that baseline in order to leverage that as we go into Alexandria with that kind of bigger backdrop of our longer roadmap, as well as some exciting stuff coming out around Alexandria itself and Scrypto itself. And then also I'm really excited about the bits after Alexandria. So when it's actually out, seeing what people in the community start to build and how they utilize these tools that internally we're really excited about, and seeing people actually utilize those externally, I think is really positive looking. But I'm sure Matt and Russ have more to say on that.
Yeah, so you go moving down the stack. Let's go to Matt next.
Yeah, I think someone's probably going to quote me that I said someplace that I'm not a hype person. Like so I'm the wrong person to answer the hype question. But I will say the thing that I think there's a contribution here that the bit that is really I've got a lot more to say of this, but in fact this is going to be part of the keynote at the event in November at APE. But the focus of Alexandria for us is really about building a strong, active community of developers. And we'll get into this, but like that is how we're going to win in this fight. And so, from my point of view, it's a different form of hype, but I think the whole Radix philosophy is hype that's not just skin deep. It's not just sort of like, it's not only a marketing campaign. It's not only going to events and getting people excited. There's something behind it. And so this is what we're really trying to start with Alexandria, is get an already passionate group of people that are like, they're going after me every day. It's like, when are you going to tell me about Scrypto? We want to, we've got these ideas. How are we going to do this? Like, we want to take all of that enthusiasm and give that an outlet with what we're building with Alexandria, and then start expanding it and growing it organically. I want to get people working with the code and showing what they can do with Scrypto, and then taking that to their developer friends, and then those become advocates, and we start building it this way. And that kind of, what this means is that when we bring attention to Radix with our marketing programs and advertising, all these sorts of things, people don't show up on our doorstep and go, oh, this is really cool. And then wait, you have only got 10 developers in your community, or, you're not, I don't actually see any people writing any code with this. This is just yet another nonsense crypto project. So, I guess Adam's in charge of the hype, but I want to make sure the hype is well-founded. This is what we're trying to do with the next couple of releases.
My headspace is whenever you say you're not a hype person, I just superimpose it on the cool guys don't look at explosions things. That there's me and Piers laying on fireworks and stuff, and you just casually strolling off like, yeah, I know this is damn good. I don't need to shout about it.
And I suppose like everything Matt's saying, like Russell is the person who's responsible for making sure that's true, right? It's like the story of Radix. The thing that we are most keen in proving correct is that that it's hype that's more than skin deep, and that comes really down to the quality of the product. So it'd be great to just hear a little bit about all of the things you guys have been doing to make sure that it does do what we want it to do, and it does create that great developer experience, which is like the very basis for the hype that we'll be building around it afterwards as well.
Yeah, there's a term in software development, if you don't know it, called eating your own dog food, which is that you use the product you're creating as you're creating it, because that's the best way to discover what are the problems, what are the things that are great, what are the things that you need to spend more time and attention on. And that's what we've been doing with Scrypto nonstop from the beginning, even when it was just literally an idea of a syntax that had no implementation behind it. We were saying, okay, let's go through a bunch of existing DeFi apps and let's just code them out. What would it look like? What would it feel like? And where are the things that we think we can make the experience better? And even without an implementation behind it, we've gone through a few great design iterations just doing it that way. And now that we do have a first nascent implementation where you can build things and deploy them to the simulator in-house, we've been doing that. Like we had a Scrypto day just recently with the entire tech team where everybody just came in and engaged with the tools and start building some stuff, and let's collect feedback. And we mentioned already that the Node Runner group that we have in Discord is absolutely top-notch, terrific, blew away all my expectations of how well it would go, as far as people come in having never run anything on a server anywhere, and someone jumps in and patiently steps them through every bit of the process just out of the goodness of their hearts. We need to recreate that exactly with our developer group, because as far as I'm concerned, that's already a gold standard in the Node Runners, and I just want that exact same feeling of community. And that's what we're looking to build among the developers in Alexandria. And for hype, if we need Matt to contribute to hype, we'll see if we can get a Steve Ballmer developers Scrypto one.
The reason I wear the button-down shirts is so that I can rip it off when it's required.
Your alter ego is hype man. You take the glasses off, take the shirt off, and fly off into the distance of excitement.
There is another aspect of this which I think is important to sort of just talk about as well, which is like if you look at a lot of the interviews that I've done over the years where people are like, who's the target audience for Radix? Like, who's the target customer for Radix? I always talk about this concept of the developer entrepreneur and us being a platform for the success of others. And that is everything that we are doing. Like Matt has this wonderful phrase, which is to give builders everything they need to obsolete traditional finance. And like it's this idea of like, we don't know the answers. We don't know what the future looks like, but what we can do is create an incredible set of tools to help people build that future and be successful as a result of building it. And so like a lot of that hype will come from us championing people who build stuff on our network, of raising up the community and celebrating when people are successful and do things that are great and help other people out. And like that is how you build a real community around a thing, not something that's skin deep, but something that actually believes in the fact that we are here together to build the future of finance, that to build something better than exists today. And to do that, you first need a really great group of set of tools, but you also need a really great group of people, and a group of people who are willing to put in the effort, who are willing to try things when they're still janky, willing to give the feedback because they understand that product is an iterative process. It isn't perfect when it first comes out, but if the direction is right and the people are willing, you can end up with something world changing. And that's kind of what the journey we're on now. And the first step of that is really the Alexandria. Okay, so next question. Other layer ones have a head start on Radix, some with large ecosystems, hundreds of dApps, thousands of users. What needs to happen for Radix to catch up and overtake these others? I'm going to start. Russell, I'm going to start with you. You haven't started.
Sure. This is one that I hear a lot from people in the, in the socials, and it always puts me in mind of Braveheart when, Wallace has the Scottish lords and he says, "You're so concerned with squabbling over the scraps from Longshank's table that you've forgotten your right to something greater." This is not about, oh, how do I move all the developers off Ethereum to here? That's nothing. I'm not trying to, the goal is not to just steal the existing pie. We need to grow the pie tremendously. I mean, if you aren't on board with the idea that DeFi is at the very, very, very beginning, like this is tiny, tiny first steps, then you're just not seeing it the way that I'm seeing it and the way that we're seeing it at Radix, that it's about scaling those numbers way up from hundreds of thousands to a couple of orders of magnitudes greater than that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, it's about the scale of that problem to be solved. That, I can't. It's hard to consider any of the platforms out there as sort of like, this is the incumbent in DeFi. Like DeFi hasn't started. It's the experimental stage right now. It's sort of, you've got platforms that are trying to show that experiments and early, exploration of the DeFi space is possible. But the scope of where this thing is going is just unbelievably bigger than where it is today. And I guess the other half of this to me is, how do we win in that fight? Is that the only answer is exponential growth. Like you can't get from a community of like hundreds or even thousands of developers to millions of developers by direct means. Like you need to have multiplying effects. It's there's no ICO fund big enough to go out and convince a significant percentage of the world's developers that DeFi is where they should be spending their time and passion and, investing all of their expertise into solving problems. This has to be organic. It has to be people that are going, that experiment and get excited and show success, and then tell their friends, and they tell their friends, and they tell their developer friends. And you get people that choose to do this because they see the opportunity and they see other people doing great things there. And this is, again, where it gets into the tools that we're building. So we feel like there's this damper that puts on that kind of organic growth right now, because the tools are just not sufficient. Like, you get people that get excited about this when they're already passionate about crypto, but there's a limit on how far that goes. There's a limit on the number of developers that are going to put up with things just to be able to put their fingers into the crypto ecosystem. We need to open this up to people that just want to build something great, and maybe they don't even understand crypto to begin with. They just see an opportunity here. This is what happened with the explosion of every other you look at apps on the iPhone or web apps or anything like this. This all came from reaching this critical threshold where there was enough power to build really interesting things, and there was just enough momentum that it grew that community exponentially. And then suddenly every developer was thinking about building an app or whatever. That's what we need to get to at DeFi.
Yeah, there's two really important concepts that I think are really pertinent here, that sort of one Peter Thiel talks about, which is this idea of the last to market advantage. It's because people talk about first to market advantage, but he talks about last to market advantage. The last player that comes in who understands the market enough to take the market. There's this fact I love, which is Google was the 16th major search engine to come to market. There was no entity, no reality where it was the first to market. And the other thing is like the Amazon principle of building companies, especially when it came down to AWS, is like any of the early case studies that you look at in Amazon is they didn't look at any of their competitors. Like there was Rackspace and there's all these other ones that were already doing stuff and were bigger than them. What they looked at instead was an obsession in who their customer was and what their customer needed. And if you're concentrating on that's your main proper basis for growth. It's not going, how can we get the same number of developers as that ecosystem or the same number of users as that ecosystem. It's how can we create a really great set of product for a very specific group of people that will have an exponential effect of an ecosystem over time. Like the size of anyone else's doesn't matter. It's whether or not you can actually create a viral loop or a flywheel effect in how you build your business. And that comes down to understanding your customer, understanding the product need for that customer, and really focusing on what delivers growth that is relevant to what you're trying to build, not just growth for growth's sake. And this is a lot of the problems that you see in the crypto space. One of the big problems of scale in like the .com era was companies that got too much money too quickly, and what they often did is just throw money at things because they didn't know yet what their product market fit is. They didn't have their signal to noise ratio. I talk about this all the time internally, was awful. Because it was just like, oh, we're just going to throw a lot of stuff against the wall and see what sticks. And when everyone doesn't, like, when you just have a lot of data from your spending, but you don't really know what like the main driver of your growth is, or where it's coming from, or why people are picking you over other things, or what your key USP is in your market and all that kind of stuff. It just sort of becomes very, like, even if you do get some growth, it's temporary because you have no protective moat, you have no reason for people staying. And like the protective moats in these in these systems, it really does come down to the community and the people who are there to help each other out, and how much they believe in the tools and the ethos of what is being built. And that's the first thing you just really have to concentrate on getting right. And we're still in the early days of that, right? Like this is our first strong hypothesis about what it really means to build DeFi. And it's important not to add too much noise to that, to make sure that we're understanding what the pulse of that is. And then you can add fire, and then you can add gas to it. But this is a process of lots of people have done it before and done it incredibly successfully over a period of times, and most of their competitors have failed because they didn't do it. And that, that's it.
There's also little things you can grease the wheel. Like, one of the things that I always look at when you're building an ecosystem is it's very similar to building any other kind of platform. There's things that you can do to encourage those network effects Matt is talking about. And just bringing it back to what Russell was saying as well, and how early we are. Like, DeFi today, about $100 billion. Global finance, $360 trillion. We are small, and I like using the analogy of the App Store as well, that I think Matt used, where today it's the beer drinking app. And don't get me wrong, that beer drinking app on the iPhone where you pretended to drink a beer, fantastic, amazing app. How many people were inspired to go and build some cool apps because of that? But today, if you release that, you'd be like, that's a weird
People
app.
are like, that's so easy, I can do that. Fantastic, go do it. That's the point.
And that's exactly what we want to make with Scrypto. And then there's going more long term with this, is it's creating the right feedback loops. So I'm a big supporter internally of like the developer royalty system as a way to encourage contribution to the network and ecosystem that feeds back to, if it creates value, the person who adds it should get value from it, and that should be set by the system. And once you get those flywheels spinning up and growing, well, then other people can come and build on top of that, which creates new marquee users, that inspires new people to come and get involved, which brings more assets in, and as more assets come in, then you get more developers come in as well. And as long as you're creating a system where those spin-ups aren't limited and nothing's putting the brakes on them, that's the point where you hit scale. And once you start hitting scale, you've got to be able to expand that really, really quickly. And if you look in other verticals like online video, for example, what killed so many online video platforms was bandwidth. They got too successful, and then suddenly the bandwidth costs put a brake on them and they couldn't do it. And so actually this is where, even more so in a DLT environment, you've got to plan the architecture and do it right to be able to plan to win this war. And today's battle is the beer drinking app. We want to get to the point where this is the center of everyone's financial world. And we believe that DeFi doing that is going to make our lives better, everyone we know's lives better, all the way down to children, great-grandchildren, etc. And so when you've got that vision, it's planning out for that to try and do it as best we can and enable builders to do that.
Yeah, you need to allow the developer to see that there's this scope of opportunity for them. I mean, and the target user here ultimately is everyone. Virtually every person interacts with the financial system, and so that's the user base for this. And it's really hard to argue that DeFi of today is coming close to, like, you know, imagine, even if, I don't care how much you're into crypto, imagine most of your friends and your relatives, like, is DeFi solving problems for them yet? They're not. And it's not because developers don't see that, I guarantee every developer in DeFi today is like thinking about that. They're going, man, like, that's the big problem to solve. I want to go bigger with this. I want to go wider with this. And it's not because they're stupid. It's because they just don't have what they need to get there. Like, it is just, they're having to limit the scope of what they're doing because it's the only thing that's feasible with the set of tools they have and ecosystem inputs and all these other sorts of things. So, like, our whole thing is trying to knock down those barriers one by one. So the scope is you can have that kind of scope practically, and go after that larger market, because that's what everyone wants, both people inside and outside the ecosystem.
Yeah, the scale is something that is sort of like, I feel like people aren't yet properly got their heads around. Like,
Right.
you know, that moment in the social network where Sean Parker and Mark Zuckerberg are talking, and Mark Zuckerberg's like, I think it's worth $1 million, and Sean Parker's like, you know what's cool? $1 billion. Like, in this, it's like, you know what's cool? $1 trillion. Like, it's just another level of magnitude, and there are the opportunities out there for developers who are sufficiently ambitious and early and smart to work out what that $1 trillion opportunity is. Like, we are decentralizing literally the global financial system of the world, and the Googles of tomorrow and the Facebooks of tomorrow and all those kind of things are going to be built on these platforms, and that's the opportunity that people have available to them. Like, it's insane.
And the things being built, if you look today, it's probably things we can't imagine yet because it's solving things that aren't capable with the current infrastructure. Like,
right.
how do you make the internet the best place to make a phone call? Is a really dumb example of planning to build the internet. Like, that's not how people use it predominantly, as we are all sat here on a video call between the four of us. But right. Fundamentally, these new things are going to explode the ecosystem. So even then, it's like, me, the minimum level is the current global financial system. Where that goes on to could be far more than that still.
Right. And it always comes back to this idea, like, sorry, I have a habit of quoting lots of different people, which people will like get used to. So
it's your job. That's what the CEO does. Is
just trite quotes.
The trouble is, Russell outdoes it because he does the really good movie quotes. So
yes.
Right.
You can rest easy now.
So yeah, like the whole Gandhi, like first they laugh at you. What was it? I actually can't remember what it is.
Just keep going. Misquoted. So people can correct you.
I failed in my position as CEO. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then you win. And like that is the truth of the crypto market at the moment. Like, it was a joke. Bitcoin was a joke. It was literally a punchline on like talk shows for a while. Mm-hmm. And now they fight you. Like, you're starting to see regulatory spin up. You're starting to see more people get serious about whether or not this is like a legitimate threat. You're seeing very conservative politicians talking about how it's a threat to national sovereignty and all this kind of stuff. And like, you know, that is going to be an interesting fight, and the fight needs believers, needs people behind it who want that future to exist. And, you know, this again comes back to the importance of the community, but why I think this is such an exciting space as well. Let's move on to the next question. what are some of the barriers to getting a layer 1 like Radix listed on exchanges versus an ERC20 token? Matt, do you want to take that one?
So you're asking me when Binance? That's the
Basically.
That was a long way of saying when Binance. Let's start
But
on
you
this
can
one.
do,
Yeah.
right, Matt? You can.
No,
Just say soon to all such questions.
Right. It's honestly a really good question, because it's I mean, it is something that's very top of mind for us getting exchange lists for a variety of reasons. Like it's about growing the base of our token holders, but it's also, there are all these dependencies on, like, you know, a lot of things that we do to get listed on like CoinGecko and these sorts of things. I'm really speaking for you, Adam, but like there are these things where like getting the exchange listings gets you more coverage, which gets you more volume, which then allows you to do other things, which you get this kind of feedback loop. So it's something that we're putting a lot of work into for sure. There are the business sides of it, which I'll let others comment on, and then there's the technical side of it, and this is one where this is yet another one of these things where getting on Network Live is really important, because you really don't, essentially, to be honest with you, like nearly every exchange out there, other than the kind of like the weird sketchy ones that you mostly don't want to deal with in the beginning, like they don't pay attention to you until you have a live network. There's virtually nothing you can do. You can go to them and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, great, talk to me when you've actually launched. And so once you actually have a live network, you can start to have that conversation. And once you start that conversation, you can start to understand what the exchange integration really looks like. What do they need from a technical point of view to do a good integration? And this got mentioned in the last Radix report a little bit. We've gotten from more than one exchange we've talked to, as well as even non-exchanges. Like there's even like KYC chain analytics providers we've been talking to. Now that we have that network live, when you have providers like that need to do unusual interaction with the ledger, they like understand an exchange is not just sort of like, it's not like a wallet. It's not just going, okay, we're just going to use the little RPC API and, you know, we're going to set up 1 million different accounts for people and we're going to watch those and send transactions around on your behalf. They have to operate at a much, much higher scale, which means they need like raw access to ledger state. They need to be able to observe how things are happening on the network in general, and they need to be able to kind of do more bulk interactions with the ledger. And so you don't really get that feedback of like what form they want that data and what's important for them from an operational point of view until you get the network live. And now that information is flooding into us. We're getting tons of feedback in this, and this is now fed into this big API update that we've been talking about. This will be like, let's say next month, something like this. You know, we've got a few weeks of work on this API update. Now we can get much sharper about the requirements for that API update and feel confident that this isn't like us thinking ahead of time, like, what do we think these guys might want, and put a bunch of work into it and then find out actually we have to throw out most of that and it ends up being really disruptive. We can build that support in now that we're actually getting the concrete feedback. And once we've got that in place, now it'll be much easier for us to go to the first exchange and the second, the third, and the fourth, because we know what they want, and it's going to be a really easy integration. Because once these guys are paying attention to you, it's not as if like they kind of want to like work on this for a month or something. It's either like they're paying attention to you and they're integrating you next week once all the business stuff has been signed off and you give them the interfaces they want. And so you kind of, until you have all your ducks in the row, you really can't get that far. And so right now we're doing a lot of work on getting all those technical ducks in a row, as well as starting the business conversations, which I'll let someone else comment on.
So
and just to point out too on.
No, go for it, Russ. I was actually just going to ask you, like, just talk a little bit about.
See, I jumped on your
you got in there. You're like, wow, yeah, this is my opportunity.
Yeah, it's also the case that as part of these conversations, the thing that has to be avoided after doing software development professionally for a couple of decades is to avoid the temptation to, I have this one, in this case, exchange we're talking to, I can meet their specific needs within 2 weeks if I go do something special for them,
right?
Which is different than what this other exchange wants. And as soon as you commit to start doing that, now you have this impossible support burden down the road, because you have 7 different partners using 7 different specialized implementations that all need to be supported individually. And so that's part of this API redesign, is let's meet everyone's needs, both the consumer and the exchange, and do it in a way that we feel meets the most needs we're not even thinking of yet, just because we're providing the tools to get you not the absolute lowest level ledger state, as that's down to on the node itself, but just one step above that will be available. so that you can easily get the complete history of things and then do whatever you need to with it.
Yeah, the special support. I mean, to be frank, that special support thing, that was exactly the situation with Bitfinex. We needed to get an exchange there as quickly as possible at launch, because that, you know, like the difference between 0 and 1 is enormous. And so we did special things for them. We got that going, and we sort of, you know, they're honestly running with software that's not released to anyone else. Like, they're doing some special stuff because it was that important to get that going. But for number 2, we really need to take the longer term approach on this, and so that's why it's taking a little bit longer than we'd like, to be honest. But, you know, once we get that foundation in place, we take the long term view on things, and it means that it makes things much easier for us in the long term, and it means that we can scale things to a much larger number of exchanges, and even things like wallet integrations and all these things much more easily.
I think it's also important just to reiterate the point in which this is, like, Radix is a roadmap-driven technology company where we have released things knowing that there was more stuff to do. Like, it was not a big bang. Like, Olympia was not a big bang release of everything. Like, everyone knows that there's Alexandria and then Babylon to come, but that's also true of the thing, like what the state Olympia was in. Like, we knew that there was more work to be done at each level, and that we would continue to update that. But we understood that people, like the community, wanted network to play with, to start staking, to start the process of decentralizing the network, to start the process of bootstrapping the security and all that kind of stuff. So, like, no, this is not like Avalanche level, Solana level at this stage, because it was never meant to be. It's a process of building towards that and building the community alongside and taking you guys on the journey. And so, you know, that these things happen in order.
And by taking that approach, this is how we're able to build past those other projects, is because this is their Achilles heel, in my opinion, is that there are a lot of projects in this space, nearly every project in this space, that is very reactive. It's very like, what can we sell right now? What can we build that's going to solve like the immediate problem that's on people's mind is in the news at this moment, so that we can build a lot of hype off of that and try to go to the next stage. And I think we're really unusual, and we're taking a long-term view about, no, what does DeFi really look like a few years from now? What does the big win actually look like, and what's required for that? I think this is our secret weapon, is being willing to take that kind of focus on what we're building.
Adam, on the business side, what do exchanges look for when they're contemplating listing a token, in your experience?
So fundamentally, any business objective is commercial for an exchange. So when they list a token,
exchanges want to make money.
Yeah, they want to make money. Amazing this. They like money, and they like providing good things for their users. So I see quite a lot of people being like, "Oh, just pay them some money." And realistically, the level of trading going on is an interesting money to them. Like, if it's a high volume traded asset that has a lot of attention, a lot of people wanting to come and trade that asset on their platform, that's long tail revenue that is orders of magnitude more than anything they could reasonably charge a project. And that's so
they want. Yeah.
They want to see that. Then another thing that I quite often see is they are still reactive in some things. So they're like, oh, why did some meme coin get listed on some exchange somewhere? Like, well, because their users want that as well. And what their listing teams often look at is this entire matrix of, is this a good business decision? Just the same as any other business would make it. Is it going to make us money? Is it going to make our users happy? Is it going to open up new markets for us? Is there new opportunities there? And when you look at all of these together, that's what gets exchanges interested. Plus, they, as every other business, also have limited resources. They can't go and maintain, list, and support every single asset everywhere. One, because that's a big technical drain for them. There's more they've got to upkeep. It also makes things messy for their users. So that's why you see some exchanges with a smaller number of tokens, or areas where they have more long tail or different pairs, because they want all of that supported. So it's a good user experience and a good commercial experience. And this ties back into doing things properly as well. So when we're looking at the integrations with exchanges now, as Russ said, yeah, there could be an argument of going, oh, we'll just do something special for this one. And then we might get one more, but we can't do that every single time. And every one of those we do it adds more debt that we've got to repay in the future of how do we keep this sustained? How do we move them onto the new system? That's frustrating for them commercially as well, which could actually damage our relationship with the exchanges long term, because it makes it more awkward and difficult for them. And so the balance from our side is, for Radix token holders, when we get more exchanges, Will that help existing holders? Will it expose us to new holders? And will it give a benefit to the ecosystem? And that leads a lot of what we're doing, both from the current time to a long time. So an acute thing that we are sacrificing by having to wait for these new APIs is that things, as Matt said, CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap. At the moment, their policy is that for XRD, they won't list it and confirm the market cap until it's on multiple exchanges. Now, would that help if we had a system in place a couple of weeks early? Well, maybe. They don't give exact numbers on how many exchanges or how much volume they need or things like that. It's very much a commercial decision based on what they see as the interest. So doing it well is much more likely to have long-term success and make that entire process better than trying to just hack something together just to get it done quickly. And that's always a balance we have to take, but also any of our commercial partners have to take as well.
I completely agree. Like, all of the things I see is there's part of it is a speculative bet, part of it is a response to community, and part of it is a business decision. The business decision is ultimately, is it going to make me money? And how they gauge that is what's the traded volume. Like, the simplest way to get listed on any exchange is to have a really great traded volume on market. You could argue it's a little bit chicken and egg, right? Like, without the exchanges, how do you get the traded volume? But exchanges primarily make money every time a token is traded. So if the token traded volume is high, an exchange is going to just de facto be more interested in looking at it. The second is what, like, their target market, because they can look at a traded volume and they can say, well, it's the traded volume, but our community isn't talking about it, which means that most of the traded volume is probably in a different region. So, like, if you take an exchange that mostly focuses on the Asian market, but none of the community, and like, these exchanges have got big communities, none of the community is really talking about this project, and you better believe that the listing managers hang out on crypto Twitter and hang out in their communities, then they're going to be like, yeah, the trading volume's okay, but like, it's not, like, no one's in our community seems to be interested, so if we list it, then it's probably not going to take much of that volume anyway. And then the last thing that they look at is they go, what do we think the future promise of this is? And that's where it becomes much more qualitative than quantitative, which is like, do we believe this thing's going to be huge? And if we list it now, and we're one of the first places or one of the early places to list it, are we going to acquire new users by dint of being the place that that this thing exists, and by dint of the fact that by doing that, more volume ends up being traded on our exchange for that token or those token pairs, which makes our exchange more attractive for the larger people who want to trade as well, because like, everyone is competing in terms of market depth and liquidity. And if you manage to get that combination of picking the right projects that have the right overlap with your community and the right liquidity, like opportunity, you reach this threshold where you can get the pair. As if you're an arbitrager, or if you're a professional market maker or something like that, that's the exchange you go to for your trade settlements, because that's where the most liquidity is, that's where the tightest spread is. So like, that's the game the exchanges are playing, and they're placing bets all of the time. And some of these bets are right and some of them are wrong, and sometimes it can feel completely arbitrary as to which ones they list and which ones they don't. But that you just keep knocking on the doors, you keep pushing updates to them, and you keep talking with the team, and like, you hope that the communities that they watch and are paying attention to, that your project starts coming up more often, and also that the traded volume goes up. And like, all of these things run into each other, and eventually you reach a threshold for an exchange, and they give a call and they go, hey, would you like to be listed? And you go, yeah, that sounds interesting. And then they say, here's the number, and you go, oh my god. And then you think about it, and then pull the trigger. So that's my view of it.
There's also consistency. That's the other thing that I would say, is that I've seen a couple of people in the community be like, oh, Piers said it was about volume for when Binance or something like that, and look at the volume on this day.
Right.
They're smart people. They are aware that there is variation in traded volume. They're looking at an integration, especially with not something just like an ERC20, is a bit more work for them. They like doing promotion around it. If you look when we listed XRD on Bitfinex, they did a lot of promotion around that. They promoted to their current holders, their current community. They want us to promote it to our community because it is an event for them. So they are looking for that consistency in growth. And when Piers talks about some exchanges wanting to take bets on a new token that they think has a lot of future prospect, they're looking at that trajectory. is that trajectory a steady uptick? And they go, actually, this looks consistent. They're reliable. They're constantly delivering day after day, month after month. That all helps. So it's about the consistent effort rather than a sudden burst, especially for the higher tier exchanges.
Right. It's different. You can't really fake this stuff. So yeah. I think those are the main questions for this roundtable. It's been really wonderful talking with everyone. Does anyone have any sort of final thoughts on the things that we've been speaking on?
Make sure
we need the movie quote now. Where's the movie quote?
We should end on the movie quote.
It's about hope.
The one thing I would say, anyone who hasn't seen the Alexandria preview event is both live, going to be live streamed and also available in person. So if you're in New York or can get to New York easily on the 12th of November, make sure to check out the post on the blog for that. Sign up. It's going to be really cool. You'll get some cool Radix swag and you'll get a very first hands-on preview of Scrypto. And if you can't make it in person, then also sign up. There'll be a live stream for the keynote and also a developer workshop. So definitely get involved with that and take a look. But that's my big one. And my thanks is, be there. I like
be
that.
Be there,
man.
be square. Yep. Yeah, it's going to be great. Like,
if that was, you guys missed the movie quote. It was be there.
If you want to like get some real hands-on experience, like that, we will be running workshops with the people who were responsible for building this language, and it's going to be a fantastic opportunity to really get to the grips, not just with the language itself, but also the design philosophy in creating it and sort of our approach to thinking about this problem. And so if you're interested in building in the space or have already been building in the space, if you're frustrated with building with Solidity, if you're a great Solidity developer and you think it's great and you're like, I'd like to see this better way of programming, prove it to me, like, we want all of those people. And if you want to just, come and see the keynote as well and just hang out and have some beers and have some pizza, then you're also welcome. So like, come on down. It's going to be a great event and it's called APE. So like, who doesn't want that?
Who was that? I've got to remind myself now. Was it Matt? Was it you, Matt, or Russell that realized it was APE?
It was a combination of things that led us to there.
Yeah.
I hung my head in shame that I didn't realize that great pun. Also, thank you to everyone who staked. That's the other thing that I really think I want to really nail home. Both the validators community for the incredible work you've been doing, but getting 2 billion XRD staked on the network, I think, is a phenomenal achievement. That's about
and not just 2 billion, but 2 billion well distributed stake. Like I mean, I love that the validator community is constantly poking us to like, we need to get it more broad. We need to get more stake down because that's the right instinct. Like, but where we're at right now is fantastic. Like we don't have it is. The distribution of that is, I mean, if you look at other networks, I think we actually do quite a bit better than this in terms of like how distributed we are about all that stake. Like we don't have, your typical like top 5 syndicates that are just running everything. Like it is almost entirely individual members of the community, and we don't have orders of magnitude between the top and the low in there. Like everyone's getting some stake, everyone's participating in consensus, everyone's contributing to the network and getting emission rewards. So it's fantastic.
A big part of that, Matt, of course, is down to you drilling into everyone how you like your stake.
Well, I mean, I'm from Texas. We care about stake.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone. We'll be having this on approximately a monthly basis. Sometimes we'll have to shift it around, but yeah, I think it's
Russell's frozen. I'm going to hide him. It's overly cheery. He's very happy about the stake.
Yeah. And so until next time, see you all soon.